because technical is not working. Give us just a second because we are live on one, but we're not live on the other. So everybody who's watching us on Facebook, give us just a moment. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We are so excited to have two amazing financial planners with us today. Since we are going live at a time that's not our normal, we're going to give everybody about a minute to two to jump online and be able to get ready to hear the presentation. So we'll be back with you guys soon. Okay, I think we can finally get started. So welcome to all of our exceptional families that are viewing us from Facebook, LinkedIn, or who are tuning in later. We're so excited to bring you two amazing experts today. We hear frequently from families that they don't know how to plan for their children's future as they grow. And so we have two people here who are going to help us figure out the best way to do that and provide us some options. The amazing thing is that at the end of this Facebook Live, they're going to provide us with their contact details so that you can reach out to them and really get the ball rolling for your family. I'm going to toss it over to you, Brenden, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, hi, everybody. My name is Brenden Sweeney. I'm a financial advisor in Denver, Colorado, and I have been working with Austin and her husband, Josh, for a while. Before this, I was in the military, and I have a couple years of experience working with people who were part of the Exceptional Family Program, and I know how hard it can be to make sure you actually get the benefits you need from the DoD. So I think that the work that Austin is doing is really awesome, and I'm glad that we can actually have this conversation with you guys. A little bit about my background as to why I care about this community specifically. My mother was a teacher of special needs while I was growing up. So I've always kind of been around the outskirts of families that have special needs. And I started working with Josh and Austin as a financial advisor and saw all the work that the help that they needed, basically. And I thought that there was a real opportunity here for us to do something. And then I saw Missy Burback on stage at annual meeting for Northwestern Mutual. And she talked about her experience both as a mother of a family with special needs and as an advisor in that community. And I thought that she was the person I needed to get in front of people who have these concerns. So I'm really excited to bring her to this community. With my military background and Missy's background in special needs planning, I think that we are the perfect pair to talk about this today. But I will let her introduce herself. So without further ado, Missy Burback.
Hi, everybody. Hope that you are having a fantastic day today. Happy Wednesday to all of you, and thank you so much for having us here today. Hopefully, at the end of our hour together, you guys walk away with some helpful nuggets, pieces of information you didn't know before that is going to be both meaningful and impactful in your family's lives. We do have that comment box, so feel free to type in comments or questions along the way. I won't be able to see them, but Brenden will be watching them in the background, and he'll pop in as he can to let me know what those questions are, or if any that we don't answer throughout our time together in the presentation that we have today. So we are just going to jump right in so that we can get through all the material as well as make sure that we've got time for your important questions at the end. We are going to be talking today about creating a plan for our loved ones with special needs, but I think it's important that we step back a little bit and just talk about what everyone is thinking and how we're all feeling. And there's some real statistics out there, and I think as some of you are maybe reading some of these, you might be going, that's me, that's me, that one's me too. And that is completely normal. Some of the ones that stand out the most to me, or that I think are the most meaningful and create me to really want to create action and be impactful, is that 82% of caregivers are concerned that they don't have enough financial resources to last the lifetime of their disabled loved one. The other one that really jumps out to me is that 87% are concerned about what will happen to their child with disabilities when they're no longer here to provide that care. And then lastly, the one on this page that jumps out, though they're all important, is that 59% of caregivers are concerned that they don't have enough financial resources to last their loved one's lifetime as well as their own. And so I'm here to hopefully change these statistics. That's my ultimate goal and my passion and purpose. But how I came to be here is a little bit unique, as Brenden alluded to, and why I'm here. I think most of us that work within any realm of the special needs planning world, whether it's in nonprofits or in different arms of it, most of us, I think, come to be a part of it because of our own personal story and connectivity to it. I have been a financial advisor now with Northwestern Mutual for 20 years. When I was 5 years in the business, I had my first daughter, Michaela, and when she was 11 months old, we found out that her brain hadn't developed properly. A spontaneous mutation at conception occurred, causing something called lissencephaly, which roughly translates to smooth brain. Her brain is too smooth, which means that she has global impacts in her development cognitively and physically. She's 15 years old today, but as she sits today, she is nonverbal and non-ambulatory. She has a catastrophic seizure disorder. She is partially G-tube fed and 100% reliant on us for every aspect of her daily life. So medically complex would be a definitely good way to summarize her. But those are just diagnoses. As all of you know, and I'm sure describe your own loved ones, has absolutely very little or nothing to do with who she is as a person. She is the most amazing, loving, lighthearted little girl you'd ever want to meet. She is so social for being nonverbal. Like, she teaches the world to communicate in a whole new way, and just lights up the room by her very spirit and her energy. And so I am grateful every day that God chose me to be her mom. But probably like a lot of you, on that fateful day where we got word of the diagnosis, I quickly realized that the financial plan that we had as a family was no longer adequate. It wasn't going to work, but I was overwhelmed as to where I go and what I do. And I knew that if I was overwhelmed, and I'd been a financial advisor for a little over 5 years at this point, I could only imagine what other families must be going through and what stress and anxieties they must be feeling as it comes to this kind of topic and work. And so that was my catalyst to start working with families like mine, knowing that I could make an impact and a difference to help them navigate these really difficult conversations and topics. And so now, 15 years later, it makes up about 75% of the families I work with are families like mine, where I get to know their families pretty intimately and help them navigate some of these complexities as their children ages. All right. My mission is to educate people first and foremost, because I truly believe that knowledge is a power. But I want to guide caregivers through these complicated topics and daunting tasks of planning not only for themselves, but hopefully, if we're all fortunate, God willing, a lifetime of our children beyond us. And help walk through some of the most emotional conversations that I think we're going to all have while doing this planning and visioning for our family. So a question for you all to ponder for a second is, when it comes to your finances, what is it that you worry about most? What maybe keeps you up at night, or the question that you keep coming back to that you don't have the answer for? Some of the things that Brenden and I hear is that we don't know where to start. It's really overwhelming. And so often that causes us not to start. Some people say, well, we have it all taken care of. They believe that the benefits and the pieces that they have are going to be sufficient for the lifetime. A lot of people tell us that they do have a lot in place. They've made some good progress, but they aren't quite sure how they're going to fund the special needs trust for their child. And on occasion, we hear that wealthy families might not need to do this kind of planning. We would tell them that it's never too soon to start planning and that you don't have to do it all at once. I think bite-sized pieces, one step at a time, is really how we get the ball moving, and any progress is good progress. And lastly, we would share that you're not alone. It isn't something you have to do alone. There are experts out there to help guide you along the way. Today, what we're going to talk a little more about is building your team and who should be on that team. We're going to talk about developing your special needs plan. We're going to talk then a little bit about the differences of special needs trusts and ABLE plans. So let's jump in. Most important, kind of the PSA announcement, which many of you know, the whole reason for this type of planning and what makes this planning unique is that our children with a disability or our loved one with a disability, once they reach adulthood, they can never have more than $2,000 affiliated with their name and not risk losing Social Security or Medicaid benefits and potentially some other state or local benefits. So that is what is at the foundation of why we do this planning and what makes it so unique is how do we plan for them when they can't accumulate more than $2,000 at any one time in their name? We start by building out our team. And as you've already kind of heard today, a little bit about Brenden and I, we serve oftentimes in the financial professional world or realm. The other two main team members are going to be a government benefit specialist and an attorney. Now, that attorney, we would recommend that it is a special needs estate planning attorney. There's lots of estate planning attorneys out there that are super knowledgeable, wonderful people, and they will tell you, oh yeah, I can do a special needs trust. The question really becomes, should they? And I often give the example of a cardiologist knows the heart really, really well, but should they perform surgery on the heart? Probably not. There's a cardiothoracic surgeon to do that. And it's very similar in this space. Is an estate planning attorney very knowledgeable and know a lot about special needs trusts? Absolutely. Should they draft a special needs trust? Probably not. And that's because special needs trusts really need to comply with the Medicaid laws that are within your state, and that is different state to state. And so you really want to meet with an attorney that is in your state and knows that state's laws inside and out and is on top of when they're changing because they do change fairly regularly. Government benefit specialists, that is one that we probably get the most questions about. Where to find them? Who are they? What do they do? It is a unique role. I would say it doesn't really come onto the team as an active participant until the individual with the disability reaches adulthood. Anytime from, I would say, 18 to 35 on the high side is when we really begin to engage the work of a government benefits specialist. They're going to make sure that we have transitioned to adult benefits. We aren't missing any adult benefits that we're entitled to. They're also going to help us develop a quality of life plan for the future that's going to help serve as our roadmap, both of what do we want, what does our child want for their life, and what might be the extraneous costs that aren't covered by our benefits. This is just a nice way to look a little bit about what I just said in terms of a list about what each of the individuals on the team provide and what kind of falls within their responsibility. The bottom bar, I call those the boots on the ground folks. I think everyone can probably relate. Those are the people that are in our loved one's day-to-day life. We hate when we have to replace one of them, a doctor, a teacher, a therapist. I would put my nanny in that group. I cannot live without her. I love her to pieces. She keeps our house functioning. She loves my kids like her own. She is detrimental to our daily function, right? But they're the boots on the ground folks. And if we have to replace them, it's sad and painful at the time. But they're often the ones that know the most about our kids because they are there every single day in good times and in bad with our family. The top 3 team members float in and out oftentimes, depending on what's going on, time of life, stage of life, and just era of planning that we're in. All right, in developing the special needs plan, What makes it unique, or what makes financial planning for families like ours unique, is that it's two plans in one. I think when you think of regular financial planning, if you will, mom and dad, they have kids, they put together their financial plan. At some point, the kids come off their financial plan, they launch into adulthood, they develop their own financial plan, and mom and dad are left with their plan. What do they want? What do they need for their lifetime? And to ride off into the sunset, right? Well, what's different is our children often don't launch. They are always a part of our plan. So it's always two plans in one. And when we're building that plan, we have to start, or we should start, with knowing everything we can about what's important to you, what does the day to day look like, and what do we want the future to look like. Typically, every family will talk about their saving and spending habits, their goals for the short, the middle, the long term. What do they want for their future? These are fun conversations to have, to dream, to think about what we want. The hard conversations, but truthfully, the most important part of our planning is talking about what do we want for our loved one? What do we see for their future in their life? Where will they live? Who will be the replacement team when mom and dad aren't there to do the day to day caregiving? What kinds of social activities and environments are they going to be a part of to stay engaged and active in their community? I am 110% aware that we, or at least I should say, run away from the answers to these questions. We don't want to think about it because they're hard and they're not pleasant. And truthfully, they bring a lot of emotion. But if we're going to build your plan, they have to be talked about. And if we do it the right way, we can build on it and hopefully build it into something beautiful. Not that we're ever excited necessarily about it, but that we're hopeful about the future. And so is our child, to the extent they might be involved in our plan, in the plan, and having a voice within it. All right. In the special needs plan, we want to begin by making sure that we're utilizing and we're accounting for all the benefits that we might be entitled to. That is really important because that is our foundation of our plan. Most people are pretty well aware that once our child reaches 18, they'll be eligible for SSI, or Social Security benefits. What a lot of them aren't aware of is if they don't develop a work history of their own when mom and dad retire and mom and dad start to take Social Security benefits, that the child can transition to something called DAC, Disabled Adult Child Benefits, and get a bump up in their Social Security benefit based on the work history that mom and dad have had. Social Security obviously doesn't, volunteer the information or come knocking on your door when they're eligible for those benefits. So it's important to know when and what triggers these and how to maximize them. Medicaid is obviously a huge part of the healthcare planning for our children as they reach adulthood. Vocational service, a lot of us are utilizing probably public school benefits right now through an IEP or a 504 plan. And then veteran benefits, which all of you are a part of, and have some unique opportunities in that space. This is where the government benefits specialist, again, primarily once we get into adulthood, but can help certainly in young adulthood, make sure that we're utilizing and maximizing all of these benefit opportunities. Social Security. So this is what a little bit of what I was alluding to. When our individual with a disability is under the age of 18, whether or not they can qualify for Social Security benefits is going to be based on an equation that looks at the parent's income, the parent's assets, and then household size. And then that's going to determine the eligibility of whether or not a child could receive Social Security benefits when they're under the age of 18. Once the individual becomes 18 and is legally an adult, now the ability to qualify for Social Security benefits is going to be based on their income and their assets. And that's why it's really important to make sure that at that stage, they don't have more than $2,000 affiliated with their name in savings accounts, checking accounts, savings bonds, any kind of an investment account that isn't a 529 education plan or an ABLE account. Those are the two that are allowed. Anything else is going to count against them as it comes to qualifying for Social Security benefits. The other part they don't tell you is that Social Security when you're 18 actually does do a 3-year look back to the age of 15 to see what kind of assets have been in the child's name or been transferred out of the child's name during that period of time. So leading up to that time period, we want to be mindful of where are dollars being saved, how many dollars, to make sure that on their 18th birthday, they are eligible to start receiving their SSI benefit. This year, the SSI benefit is $943 a month. That is substantial when you think about the long term and what that can get used to. And it's essentially new money, if you will, coming in to provide for the life of our child and or the lifestyle we're currently in. That's what we call SSI, and that's what most people are familiar with when an individual turns 18 and is disabled and starts to qualify for benefits. The one that most don't know about is actually coined SSDI, and this is the one that I had briefly kind of alluded to, where if the disability occurred before the age of 22, when mom or dad retire and they turn on their retirement Social Security check, the child would then be eligible for 50% of whatever mom or dad's check value is. And it doesn't change the value of mom or dad's check. This is an addition, and this is under that disabled adult child benefit. So within that, we need to do some strategic planning as to when do mom and dad turn their Social Security checks on in retirement. As an example, I'm a numbers and example person. Excuse me. Let's say mom or dad gets to be age 65 and they determine they're going to turn their Social Security check on. And let's say their Social Security check is going to be $3,000 a month to them. Under the disabled adult child benefit, that means their child is now going to be eligible for $1,500 a month. So they would get a raise from the $943 a month of the Social Security check they have today to transitioning to $1,500 a month going forward. That's a big pay bump. Then, if and when mom or dad dies, that $3,000 check that mom or dad was receiving, that would pass on to whichever spouse lives longer, but the child would go from a 50% benefit off of mom or dad's check to a 75% benefit. So they're going to get another pay bump now to $2,000 a month, and they're going to get that $2,000 the rest of their life. So you can start to see why it's important to know how these programs work and to be very strategic as to when we turn them on and when we use them and how we maximize them, not just for your retirement, but also for the legacy of your child and their support. The other piece that goes with that SSDI benefit is once a child qualifies for it, 2 years later, they'll get Medicare benefits, which can also be helpful from a healthcare perspective. Okay, we need the assistance oftentimes of the government benefit specialist to help us estimate what are the future costs. We call it what's the cost of the replacement team. So I had mentioned that quality of life plan that once we get to young adulthood is really important because it serves two purposes. One, the quality of life plan serves as our roadmap for what do we want and what does our child want for their future when we're not here? What living environments, what supports, all the pieces. But the other part of that is a quality of life plan helps us to identify where are those supports given, who's going to be giving them, and what are the costs involved. That quality of life plan also makes sure, as I said, that we aren't missing any any government benefits, state or local, and it calculates that in so that once we have the cost of the supplemental support team, then we have all the benefits figured in, we get to that net out of pocket of what do we need to provide for our child when we're gone financially to maintain the lifestyle we've now outlined for them that we want. It is that number that Brenden and I often use when we work with families to then figure out, well, how much needs to go in a special needs trust? And then we figure out, well, what assets should we put in the special needs trust? They're going to meet that need and best be most tax favorable. And so that's how those pieces start to come together in a plan. Good segue here. So we've now figured out what do we need to put in a trust. Let's talk about the trust. There's a couple different kinds of special needs trust. The main one that we're going to discuss today is a third-party special needs trust. 80 to 85% of families, I would say, this is the type of special needs trust that they are going to use. There is also something called a first-party trust. Excuse me. Can also be referred to as a self-settled trust. We have to have more than one name for things just to keep us all on our toes. A third-party trust is a trust that is set up by family members of the individual with a disability for their benefit. So parents set it up, grandparents set it up, and then it is funded with the assets of parents or grandparents. It is not funded with any assets of the individual with the disability. It cannot be. A third-party trust has to be drafted by an attorney, and it's going to make sure that anything that you leave behind for the benefit of your loved one with a disability goes to this third-party trust. By it going to this third-party trust, it makes sure that government benefit qualification is always met. Because the third-party trust is not seen as being the beneficiary's asset. They are merely a beneficiary of it. Third-party trusts can be a little bit tricky because of the fact that we do have to hire, as I mentioned, an attorney, and we want to make sure it's a qualified attorney. We need to choose a trustee. A trustee is the person that manages the assets once they go into the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary. We really encourage people to not put a person as a trustee. We'll often see families say, well, Uncle Joe could do it. He was an accountant, or, so-and-so in the family was in finance. They can be the trustee. And even though they're very knowledgeable, we would highly discourage from ever naming a person as the trustee, the person that manages the trust. The trustee has to do a couple of very important things. One, they have to manage the assets in the trust. Two, they have to make the distributions from the trust to the beneficiary. And the trust can't actually ever give money directly to the beneficiary. It has to pay for goods and services. And it has to be in what we call an allowable distribution, which of course there's a laundry list of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And if the trust pays for something that's not allowed, we risk losing those government benefits. Again, rules that are constantly changing and in flux. And so that's why we really want to put the burden of that role on a bank or what we call a corporate trustee. The reason that's also important is you have continuity. You don't have to worry about someone stepping down from that duty, saying they don't want to do that duty anymore, something happening to that individual, and now someone else has got to jump into that role who doesn't know anything about managing a trust, much less a special needs trust. So by having a corporation do it, or a third party, as we call it, you have continuity that you don't have to worry about. They also have to file taxes for the trust every year. Have I gotten you to see how big of a job this is? I'm intentionally showing you how big of a job it is. It probably sounds a little like a scare tactic, so I apologize, but it's somewhat intentional because one of the biggest mistakes we often see is having a person serve that role, making a distribution that's not allowed and losing those government benefits, which is the whole reason we're doing this planning, is to protect those. The other piece of the third-party trust, apologize, a sneeze snuck up on me there. The other part is figuring out what assets go into the third-party trust to be able to provide those benefits and that supplementary support that we need. Oftentimes, life insurance is the best asset. I often call it like the goose, the golden egg, all kind of rolled into one. We love life insurance when it comes to funding a trust. And we love it for a couple reasons. One, life insurance proceeds are always paid tax-free. So they go into the trust without any taxes. So all that benefit comes in for our loved one. Two, because it's life insurance, we know exactly how much is coming in on that fateful day when mom or dad passes away. There's no market fluctuation that changes it. There's no need of, we used it, and now there's not as much there. We know exactly what's coming in for the benefit. So we love life insurance when we can get it. A trust, a third-party trust specifically, though, if the beneficiary doesn't use all the assets after their life is passed, then anything left in the trust can go to remainder beneficiaries. So that's the other benefit to a third-party trust. So anything left that wasn't used can go to charities, could go to other family members, whoever you chose when you set up a trust. A first-party trust, or what we call a self-settled trust, is quite different. It often happens when there's either a lawsuit settlement from an accident or injury, or there's an inheritance left before planning can be done. And that is when the individual with the disability receives assets, and we have to quickly get it out of their name in order to make sure that they can continue to qualify for those state and local benefits. So we have to set up a first party trust, which, as the name insinuates, means the individual with the disability is taking their assets, shifting them to a trust to get them out of their name in order to keep qualifying for benefits. There's two problems with a first party trust, or why we don't like them as much. Is one, the individual setting up the trust, which is the individual with the disability, has to be under the age of 65 to set it up. Two, anything left in the trust when that beneficiary passes away is subject to what we call Medicaid recapture. Medicaid can go to the balance in the trust and seek reimbursement for any benefits paid on behalf of that individual, versus the third-party trust where Medicaid can't go to it at all. Anything left just passes to the next beneficiary that was mentioned in the documents. So third-party special needs trusts are always preferred by doing planning in advance. Okay. This is one of my favorite pieces, and if you would like a copy of this, feel free to email Brenden and I at the end and request it, and we can send it to you. We have it electronically. This is a letter of intent. Now, this is not a legal document. However, it should be kept with your legal documents. It is what I call like how to jump into mom or dad's shoes 101 if we had to. I think a lot of us might have some kind of a guidebook for our kiddos that we keep around. I love this because it's electronic, easy to update, and it just walks us through all the little things that maybe we forget about. It has the typical things that you would think, like the medical insurance. It's got, doctors and medications and those things that you would normally list out so that someone would have it at their fingertips if something ever happened to you. But it goes a step deeper, and it talks about their daily living, and it's what is their bathing routine or their dressing routine? What is their bedtime routine? What kinds of foods do they like or not like? Is there certain places they maybe like to go eat more than others? I give this actually to all the families I work with, regardless of if they have a child with special needs, because I just believe every kiddo is unique, and heaven forbid something happened to mom or dad and someone's got to fill that role. It's going to be traumatic for everybody. So the more someone can know about the child they're caring for quickly, the better everyone's going to be. I have two daughters. Michaela, as I shared with you, is 19 and Avery is 9. And I love Avery to pieces, but I'll tell you, she is my carb-loving nut of a girl. Like, she will eat anything that's a carb. If it's a meat, forget it. She's probably not going to eat it. Not because she's vegetarian for any particular reason, just because she loves waffles, mac and cheese, noodles, right? All the carbs. So I would tell anyone that had to jump into my shoes, don't pick the battle trying to get her to eat a hamburger. It's not going to work. Just give her the carbs, toss in a vitamin, call it a day, move on. Keep life simple. So this particular document, how I use it with my family, is I try to make it a process of every beginning of the new year, as one of the new year resolution kind of things. I pop into the electronic version, I update it for the things that have been going on, and then I email it to my brothers and sisters and my parents. And I send it to all of them so everybody's got a copy. And I send it primarily to my brothers and sisters because my parents no doubt will forget how or where they saved it on their computer and have to ask my brothers or sisters for another copy should anything ever happen. So I figure just send it to everybody. Everybody's got it. We're covered. It's also really helpful should you ever travel. I leave it with our nanny and our babysitter just so they have everything. And if heaven forbid they had to go to the hospital, they could take it with them for anyone new to meeting Michaela. Again, if this would be helpful, feel free to email Brenden and I at the end, and we'd be happy to share an electronic version of this with you. Okay, let's talk a little more about ABLE accounts. I don't know how many of you have heard of them. I feel like they just hit their 10-year anniversary, or they will hit their 10-year anniversary this December of being around. So awareness is definitely gaining out there. ABLE accounts are meant or were designed to be a place where individuals with a disability could accumulate past that $2,000 limit and not risk losing their benefit qualification. ABLE accounts, as they sit today, in order to have one, the disability had to occur prior to the age of 26. Now, I will tell you, great news is that in the year 2026, they are raising that age to 46. So the disability will have to have had to occur before the age 46. This is a big win in the legislation that was lobbied for, and the primary reason for this was truly to serve and open this up to our military servicemen and women, such as all of you, which we're very grateful for your service and all of your sacrifice. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So that they have a great and efficient place to save dollars as well. What makes these accounts so wonderful is you put after-tax dollars in. You can choose to keep them in cash, or you can choose investment options for growth, and it grows tax-free. And it comes out tax-free as long as it's to benefit the individual with a disability. And it can pay for almost anything. You'll see on the next slide what it can cover. We can build up to $100,000 in this account and not risk losing our SSI benefits. So that's huge. We can only put, though, $18,000 a year in from all sources, meaning parents, grandparents, birthday money. We cannot go above $18,000 from all sources. However, if the individual with the disability is working, they can put another $14,590 a year additional in from their earnings to grow tax-free. The tax code, as you see, is 529A. It is to be the sister, if you will, of 529C. 529C is the college savings accounts that most of us are fairly familiar with, where you can save money after tax and it grows tax-free and it comes out tax-free as long as it's used for education purposes. These were built off of that same concept and design, which is why it's got the Internal Revenue Code of 529A. Now, recently, they allowed for legislation that if an individual with a disability has a 529C or a college savings account and they don't end up going to college, one of two things can happen. One, and for most of our kids, this is the most favorable, you can roll it over to the ABLE account in $18,000 a year increments. And then once the money's in the ABLE account, it can get spent for anything. It's not locked into that just education purpose. The other rule that changed is if there's any money left in a 529C after college, up to $35,000 a year could get rolled to a Roth IRA for the same individual. That may or may not be the right course of action, depending on the government benefits involved in what we're trying to protect, but it's an option. So I say that to say that sometimes we might, if our children are young today, we might not need an ABLE account yet. We can start with a college account, which is just fine. The big downside to the ABLE accounts, which vary by state, is that some states have what's called the Medicaid payback to these, meaning if the individual who the account was for passes away, after their funeral and burial expenses are paid for, anything left in the account, Medicaid could go to seek reimbursement for services that they had paid on behalf. Now, I'll tell you, in the 10 years these have existed, no state Medicaid program has actually done that yet, but they do have the right to do it. In the last 10 years, several states have abolished that piece of the law and gotten rid of it. So you'll want to check with the state you live in to see if it is or isn't in existence. It just might mean you manage the dollars a little differently in terms of how large you build up this account. The thing to keep in mind is that this is not in place of the special needs trust. Brenden and I get the question all the time, well, should I have a special needs trust or should I have an ABLE account? It's not an either or. Most of the time, it's a both. The special needs trust is to hold the majority of your assets, the large accounts, and it can get as much as you want at any one time. The ABLE account, because it can only get $18,000 a year, these accounts come with a debit card, which makes accessing and spending these dollars on a daily basis very easy, is meant to be kind of the day-to-day functioning account. It's meant to be accessible and easy to use without the cumbersomeness of trust distributions. So they really work well together. It's not an either or. Here are the things that a 529A or an ABLE account can pay for. You can see from this list, it's almost anything. But as you see on the bottom, most states do require a Medicaid payback at the end, or can, as I mentioned. So you want to be mindful of that piece. ABLE accounts are run and managed by the states. So financial advisors such as Brenden and I cannot set these up for our clients. We don't manage these accounts. The states manage them. The map you're looking at shows you which states have an account and which states don't. The gray states do not have an account. The green states do. I should have led with this, but I'm in Wisconsin. So as you can see, as of right now, I don't have one. People often ask me the follow-up question, well, then what do you do? Who do you use? I actually use Ohio's. A lot of states will allow for out-of-state residents to use their plan. So you can look for that as well if your state doesn't have one, or if for some reason you don't like your state. A lot of these states will also give state tax deductions for contributions made to the ABLE account. So another incentive to save often and save early. You will set these up through your state. I promise they're really easy. You can set them up in like 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take terribly long. They're really easy to do. AbleNRC.org, the website I have here, is for the National Resource Center. It's the government nonprofit legislative body that helps lobby and put rules together for this. They also help manage and adapt and change the program as the world we're living in changes. So what you can do is go to this website. You can go to the map that you see here, click on your state, and then what you'll find is right at the top, there'll be a link to go to your state's program to start enrollment or get more details if you're looking for it. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about don't forget to plan for yourself. You want to make sure that all of this is done and you put all this hard work into planning for your loved one's future. You don't want to forget about yourself. As I mentioned in the beginning, what makes this planning so unique is it's what I call a plan within a plan. It's two plans in one. The plan for our loved one's life lives inside of the plan for our own life. And while our plans probably don't look like they once did, I remember when I was in my 20s and my husband and I were newly married before we had kids, I remember having visions of travel and different things we were going to do that, quite frankly, just aren't possible anymore based on my daughter's needs. And that's okay. It's time to come up with different plans and different goals and vision. And so that's one of the favorite things that Brenden and I love doing is helping make sure that mom and dad are still thinking for themselves and what would bring them joy and happiness in the future and is meaningful to them. Make sure when you're looking for a financial professional that it's someone you enjoy working with. Make sure it's someone that is knowledgeable in the special needs planning area, similar to how we encourage on the estate planning attorney for you to find someone with that specialty in that niche. It's important that you look for that within the special needs planning community. There are designations now out there in special needs financial planning. I myself hold it. It's called the Chartered Special Needs Consultant. So it's like anything else. You have a unique situation and you want to make sure the person helping you has that same designation as well and has that expertise. And you want to make sure your plan is unique to you and encompasses what is important to you and to your family. We would also tell you to get as many family members involved in the planning conversation as you can, because it really does take multiple generations to execute this kind of planning. So the more people that can come around a table together to have that conversation and be a part of it, the better it's going to be for everyone. A couple more pointers here on choosing a financial professional. My biggest thing I tell everyone is just make sure you like them and you trust them. You should be talking to your financial professional minimum once a year, ideally twice a year. So if you're going to spend that kind of time with anybody, you got to enjoy it. It's got to be fun and enjoyable and someone you trust and want to have a conversation with. I'm so grateful I get to do the work I do because every time I have a client call, it's like catching up with a friend and getting to be a part of their life. And it's a really unique gift that I get to serve families in that way. So find someone that you enjoy working with. Recap. We want to make sure that you assemble your team. Again, that government benefit specialist might be a delayed add-on depending on the age of your child and where you're at. And then you want to start working on your special needs plan. It is daunting. It's a lot. We've talked about a lot today and a lot of pieces. Just know that it doesn't all happen at once. It very much is a one step at a time, one piece at a time. I often say if you're standing at the bottom of a flight of stairs and you're looking up, you can't just muster up the energy and jump to the top in one jump. At best, you maybe can get 2 steps in at a time. And so planning is the same way, 1 to 2 steps at a time, just making progress as you can. And it ebbs and it flows for sure. And of course, don't forget to plan for yourself. This is my contact information. I apologize, Brenden. I forgot to add yours in here at the last minute. So Brenden, if you can put your contact info in the chat, that would be most helpful. I apologize. I will add it to this slide and we will send the updated slides over for you to share for any participants that might email wanting them. All right, questions. Has there been any that have come up?
We've gotten several. So I think what I'd like to start with, though, is something that I think I can address. We have a lot of questions about JAG and how can JAG help you with this process. So Missy, just so you know, JAG is the military's legal office. So JAG can help. The only issue we run into is that they're not going to be specifically experienced typically with working with a lot of these people in the special needs planning area. So they do know how to set up a trust. They do know how to work on testamentary trusts. They do know how to set up wills. So it's a great first step is to talk to a JAG officer about getting it started. But the only issue we'll run into is they won't know specifically a lot of the ways to plan for this. So they are not going to be as experienced. But great start.
If I can pop in here, Brenden, since you left the military, I don't know if you realize this, but JAG has started the Military Pro Bono Project. So for families that are E6 and below, there is a pro bono referral program that can refer some families who meet financial backgrounds to civilian attorneys to get assistance with the trusts. Specific on income, so if you're a young family looking, you probably qualify, but I think that a lot of the families I'm seeing comments from don't meet that criteria, but I did want to share that for the families that are E6 and below.
Okay. Another question we got that I think applies specifically to some military benefits. We got 2 that I think we can answer in the same question. One was, what happens after we leave the military to things like our life insurance benefits? And should we use the survivor benefit plan? So, Missy, I don't know if you're familiar with the survivor benefit plan, but it's not as efficient as a lot of things could be. So I don't let any of my clients use the survivor benefit plan just because it's not as efficient or as cost effective as a standalone life insurance policy. So it makes a lot more sense to establish a life insurance policy, whether that's part of a trust, whether that's permanent or term. There's a bunch of different ways you can use it, but ultimately establishing your own life insurance policy external through a different company is typically going to be a lot more of a value to you than using the survivor benefits plan. And we can talk through a lot of other things there. It gets pretty specific to you, but generally the survivor benefits plan is just, it costs too much for the benefit it provides. And then one that I think is very much for you, Missy, is how do you find a government benefits specialist?
That is a good question, and probably the one, truthfully, I get the most. And as you can imagine, there aren't many out there. I have spent a large portion of my career trying to find more resources, and if I'm being honest, I have only found one that I refer on a regular basis and that I work with hand in hand. Some states have a state-specific, government benefit specialist. There's several on the East Coast that have them, and they can be quite helpful. But not a lot of states do. And so I often make the introduction to the government benefit specialist when it's the time. The company I use the most is called National Care Advisors. It was founded by a woman who is a nurse by training and specifically worked with individuals with disabilities for the majority of her career and saw this huge gap in their planning. What makes them unique is your particular case manager, if you will, is going to be someone that is somewhat local to you, regionally speaking. Might not be in your state, but will be in your area. If they're not, they're going to have a nursing background, so they will understand the medical complexities that you're describing in your child's situation and be a little more well experienced and understand what does the day-to-day life look like for someone. And then there's several different ways to engage them. They're a fee-based organization, but they've got hourly rates. If it's just a little bit of questions you have, they have full plans they can put together depending on the age and stage and what we're looking at. But usually I make the introduction. I sit in on those meetings because they give me the output, or give Brenden and I the output to use then within the context of the financial plan. So very much a partnership, but you can also reach out to them directly and find them online.
Well, I think that that's going to be very helpful. I also think that this one is for you. So I guess we can both answer this question, but from special needs planning, I think that this is something you know a little bit better. How do you determine what percentage of pay to put into financial planning? And do you have those recommendations for those whose children are not disabled in a way that qualifies them for Social Security benefits? So I know that for the CFP course and everything that we know about financial planning, the general rule of thumb is about 20%, but I know that it differs a little bit as we think about planning for a family with special needs.
Yeah. So I guess the way you just put that, Brenden, was different than I was thinking of it. I was thinking that question as a question of, well, how much should I put in terms of the expense of what it costs to maybe hire a financial planner versus into the saving strategies of the financial plan. So I'll answer both, not knowing which way the question was intended. If you're looking for a financial planner to grow with you, work with you, be a part of your family for years to come and help implement their recommendations, the good news is those individuals aren't going to be fee-based, meaning they're not going to give you a one-time bill for their services. They're going to get compensated through the pieces they help build within your plan, whether they're insurance pieces, investment pieces. Those financial planners are going to get compensated through inserting those building blocks and helping to manage them. So there won't be any additional out-of-pocket to you for their services. So and that's who I would look for families like ours, because I haven't met many families that aren't looking for someone to help take that piece off their plate, right? Our plates are full. I often say I feel like I'm going back to the kitchen for a platter a lot of the time. And so if someone can take a piece off of it and run with it, and I'm still a part of it, I'm driving it, but I don't have to implement and do, like, that is gold to me, right? And especially if it doesn't cost me anything extra. So you'd want to find a financial advisor that can work in that model. The other version of the question of how much should go into your financial plan in terms of saving for your future, the cheeky answer is as much as you can afford to, right? The reality is our first goal is to get to 20%, as Brenden mentioned, because ideally we want to put 10% of our income towards our longer term goals and strategies and 10% to our shorter term emergency fund and kind of next 3 to 5 year type expenses that we see coming. So that's a good benchmark. Do most people start at 20%? No, actually, I would tell you very few start saving 20%. It's all about starting somewhere and every year in meeting with your financial advisor, trying to raise that bar and move it. And you might go up 1% a year in saving. You might do 3% one year because some great things fell into place or some things came off the bottom line that don't take dollars anymore. But it's about measuring that so that you're always moving that needle forward and making improvements.
Yeah, and about measuring that, making that needle forward, it's all about incremental change. So if you can start saving and all you can save is $100 a month into your financial plan, that's a start. It builds the habit. And if you can incrementally increase that every single year as you have military pay raises, as your expenses maybe decrease, as you get into a place where you can save a little bit more money, you just want to make sure that that incremental savings grows with you. So it's not necessarily about starting out in a great place and saying, no, let's do everything all at once, like Missy was saying with the steps, right? You can take 2 at a time maybe, but you're not going to jump all the way to the top. So if you can just start somewhere, that's the best way to do it. Yep. And then we had a follow-up question about the Survivor Benefits Program. So specifically, every plan is going to be different. And the question is, how much does a civilian life insurance program pay, and is it worth it? Is it comparable to what you're getting through this, military retirement program? And it really depends on what your needs are. So the problem with SBP is that it's limited by military pension. And what we're trying to figure out is, what are your needs going to be, particularly for things like the special needs trust? So the dollar amount that you actually need to provide the care is how you build a plan for how much do we need in life insurance coverage, because that gives you an exact amount of how much is going to come in. So the cost is not irrelevant, but we can factor in, does it make sense to establish just a civilian life insurance program? Does it make sense to factor in a civilian life insurance program with the SBP plan? And those two things combined will provide the amount that we need. It's just, what is your unique situation going to look like? And how can we build a plan that does that in the most efficient way possible? What we typically see, though, is that half of a military pension retirement is going to be something, but not typically going to be enough coverage to provide for all of the needs that exist financially in the future. So, long answer to say basically it depends on your situation. Yeah, and then Missy, if you have any expanse on that, then please go for it.
I would say there's just so many additional factors for each person's situation to consider, right? Your age, your gender, your health all factor into, can you get civilian life insurance and the cost? And so there's a cost analysis comparison between the SBP program and the civilian program. And again, just factoring to what Brenden said of what's the best fit in efficiency for the goal, but also cost efficiency within your family's budget as well.
And then I think one more question I think is materially different, and that's about hiring a special needs trust estate planning attorney. So the question is, kind of all-inclusive, but how do you find one? How do you make sure that they're cost-effective? And how can you make sure you can afford to pay one, and what's the average cost? So I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, so I think I can rattle that off pretty quick. One of the places that I go to is there is a organization called the Academy of Special Needs Planners. That is made up of special needs attorneys and special needs financial planners. I've been a part of it now for several years. It's a great resource. I go to their website and they have a very easy, right at the top, find a planner button that I click on. And then you can go right to your state and it'll list out the attorneys and the financial planners within your state that specialize in this kind of work. So I generally start there because my assumption is because you have to pay to be a part of this academy, of course, and we attend a lot of additional education pieces with them. And so if they're doing that, they probably are really working in this space a great deal. So I can trust that they're knowledgeable. So I start by going there. You don't need someone in your town or in your city. Again, you just need someone in your state so they know the Medicaid laws of your state. However many are on that site, I would schedule 15-minute quick interview calls. Most of them will all do that for free to ask them a couple questions about their background and get their pricing structure. Some are going to have a flat fee all encompassed for the plan. Others are going to be hourly. So you're going to want to know which is which, and then you can decide what's going to work better for your family. I generally will tend to lean towards the flat fee ones, though less and less will commit to that because they just don't know until they get to know you. But the better prepared you are when you go to meet with the attorney, the less those 15-minute increments you use of their time that they charge for, the less that bill is going to be. So if you can be organized and know who you want to serve as guardian if you're not here and trustee for the trust in those pieces, that will all save time. Generally, cost, you're good, depending on regionally where you live, that has a huge impact. You could see anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 to do that kind of work. Now, they aren't just going to do your special needs trust. They're going to do your full estate plan. So that's going to be your individual wills. That's going to be your powers of attorney, your HIPAA authorizations. It's going to be potentially a family trust for your other children, if you have other children, so that their assets can go to there. So it's going to be a full package. It's not just the trust. It's a full package that they're going to be doing. Did I hit all the pieces of that question, I think?
I think so. And I know that there are probably a lot more questions out there that haven't been asked necessarily today. Missy and I, like Austin said, our contact information will be up on the Facebook group. It'll be up on the LinkedIn group. Feel free to reach out to us directly to just get some more of these questions answered. And if anybody wants to actually sit down and have a conversation about their financial plan, just our shameless plug, consultation is free. So.
Yes, thank you so much. Go ahead, Missy.
I just want to say thank you so much, Austin, for having us. It was a pleasure to get to be here and to talk with all of you today. I am so grateful for all of your families and the sacrifice and service that you have all made from the bottom of my heart. I truly am appreciative. And if this is one small thing that I can do back to provide some value and help, I am more than happy and grateful that I got to do it today. So thank you so much.
No, thank you both for being here with us today. I know that I've seen some questions rolling in that are duplicated. I do want to share with you a couple of things we've heard from our group, so you're prepared to answer those in the comments later. A lot of our families have talked about the fact that they have children who are, like they said, not disabled enough for Social Security, but disabled enough that they don't think that they'll qualify for a life insurance plan, and they don't know how to care for them when they're not here, because these are kiddos who may fly the coop, but then come back because they're in a rough place with their disease, and then fly the coop again and come back. So if you guys have pointers that you can share with our families when they come to you, I just wanted to let you know that that is a portion of our population that we don't talk about much, and we didn't get many comments from them in the comment section today, so I'm guessing they were not available, but I know that it's a hot topic in some of our groups right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you so much. I hope that you guys have a great day. Thank you for joining us at EFM.
Well, thank you for having us.
Have a great day, everyone.